Hi, my name is Julia Birnbaum, and I'm a yoga teacher. And today I'm going to talk about a style of yoga that I teach that's called structural yoga. I'm passionate about this style of yoga because, as we may know, we can choose a lot of different types of exercise. But one of the benefits of yoga is that it aligns our bones in our body. So we can actually correct structural misalignments through our yoga practice. And one of the best ways to do that is through a focused structural practice. So where you really focus on how your body structure is and working on bringing the body in balance. I'm going to talk a bit about that right now. Um, so we have a structure. and you know the the basis of our structure is really in the pelvic area, the pelvis. And what we want to see in the body is that the legs are preferably the same length. That isn't always possible by birth, but we want the legs to be the same length. We want the feet to be evenly placed on the ground. So all parts of the feet, you may notice if you're standing, you can think of your foot as like a triangle. So you got the two front pads and then the heel and then also the toes. So those all want to be touching the floor evenly. And the only way that that's possible is if the pelvis is actually in alignment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about misalignments that can happen in the pelvis. So First, I just want to say, if you look at somebody's shoes when they're off their bodies and you look at the bottom of the shoes and how the tread is worn, you will notice that some people actually walk like this. They have less tread on one part of the rubber on the bottom of their shoe soles. So this is very common for people to be walking in these kind of odd positions with their legs. One foot is turned in, one foot is turned out, one foot is higher, one side is higher than the other. Again, this can erode our structural joints and our body over time. And it's never a good thing. So we want to try to catch it up front and focus on these misalignments. And again, the source is most always in the pelvis. So it's really about the way we stand with this area of the body. So I'm going to give a little demo. Our pelvis is like a bowl, right? We have, it's shaped like a triangle. And the back part is a flat bone that's sewn together in the back. That's called our sacrum. You hear a lot about that in yoga. It's shaped like a bowl so that basically if you had water in the pelvis, if you tilted the pelvis forward, the water would spill out. If you tilted the pelvis backwards, the water would spill out the back. So we want to act as if our pelvis is actually a bowl and that it can hold something like water. And if you've seen, maybe African ladies with the baskets on their heads walking, right? They walk I don't know if you can see this whole view, but they walk very level because they have to keep their pelvis very level as they take each step, or else they'll tip water out of the top of their basket when they're getting their water from the rivers or the lakes. All right, so two common misalignments in the pelvis is what's called a anterior tilt, when the pelvis is tilted forward. So this is most often seen in women. So the women will tilt their pelvis forward, their tail will stick out. It's sort of like, and they'll dump their belly forward. And this is obviously bad for our low back. It's bad for our legs. It's bad for, our whole bodies, but it creates a lot of pressure in the low back. So that's like a woman's misalignment. Then you have the male spectrum, which is a posterior tilt, which is where we tilt the pelvis forward. So again, there's water spilling out the back now, if it were a bowl. So we're tucking under here. It's creating tension in the low back again, and pulling, and in the hip flexor area, not so good. So this creates, stiffness and problems over time, right? So that's one thing to look at in your body if you're tilting forward, tilting backward. The other thing, which is very common, is we talk about rotation in the hip sockets with the femur bones. So we are either in a neutral rotation, which is what we are doing in Tadasana, mountain pose. In and out of many poses, we're finding a neutral stance, and we want to be able to know that in the body. So again, all parts of the feet are on the floor, outside edges of the feet are parallel. Femur bones are neutral, right? Neutral stance. Then you have exterior rotation. So when the femur bones are rolled outward, this is an external rotation. This is very, very common for people to stand like this. To stand like this, as well as to walk like this, and you can see what this does to the body, right? And this also creates the feet, the shoe problem, wearing the bottom of the shoes. So this is very common. It's very casual for us to stand this way, but we're going to find problems later in life when we do that, throughout our life. The third misalignment would be to be slightly pigeon-toed, right? So that's called internal rotation, right? The femur bones are rolling in. There are not that many yoga poses that call for both femur bones to roll inwardly, whereas we have more that externally rotate. Again, it's less common for people to stand like this. It's very much more noticeable. You would think, oh, there's something, you would label it like pigeon-toed, whereas this would just be normal. So we have to watch for internal rotation, too much external rotation, and then we have to be able to find neutral. And when we can't find neutral, we use yoga poses to find neutral. So that's what we go through the motions of the yoga, different asanas, different yoga poses. So I used to make a joke to a mentor that that we have to, just to walk in a straight line, we have to be able to do acrobatics, just to be able to walk in a straight line. Because that's how I felt when I started my yoga practice. Like, wow, this is a lot of work just to be able to walk in a straight line. But that's what it's about. So, so that's a little introduction today on misalignments through the pelvis that we can look for, and we can seek to find balance through a structural yoga practice. And in the next video, I'm going to show a few poses that can help structurally align the body through the pelvis. Thank you for watching.